Hello there and welcome to the video. We have a tactical pattern and, well, an endgame tactical pattern. A pattern that can save you half a point here and there. And the position we have before us is from a famous game between Chigorin with white and Chigorin and Tarrasch with black. And I call this pattern the Chigorin Stalemate Refuge. However, it's kind of, he didn't find it, but it's popped up in a lot of endgame books, and I saw a similar position online, and I remember this one. I was trying to remember from where, and I asked around online. I thought it was from Gary Kasparov's, my predecessors, but a lot of people recognized it from Turetsky's endgame manual, and actually several other endgame books. So it's a famous endgame. So in this endgame, Chigorin, he played g takes f6, which is a losing move. And he had thought for a while that the endgame was hopeless, but actually it's not. And he could have drawn by playing king to g4. Black plays king e5. And black's main trap seems to be that he's going to win this pawn. But we can allow him to do that by playing pawn to g6. Now black can take, and it's going to be a race. We can have a look at that, but the main move is h6. But if he takes, let's have a quick look. We're going to have a race. Black pushes, we push, and at the end of the day, we're going to make a queen as well. So that's going to be a draw. So after g6, going back, we just played pawn g5 to g6. Black plays h6. And now we see the stalemate refuge, and that's by playing king to h5. And it turns out that black cannot win this pawn because the king would simply be stalemated here on h5. So that's a stalemate refuge. Takes, stalemate. But Chigorin missed it. He played g takes f6. So perhaps we should name this after him, but okay. It should be maybe Chigorin stalemate refuge miss, I guess. But this is how it came about. Chigorin, had this outside pass pawn, but Tarrasch was able to disrupt him with the e pawn, and he had to spend time to win the pawn with the king. And now we see that this king seems to be heading towards the pawn and simply winning it. Chigorin brought his king, and king d4, and black can play back and forth here, while we can't do the same with the king. So it seems like black will reach this square, and from this square he should win the pawn. But white exhausts the pawn moves, g4, king d5, h4. So all this was correct by Chigorin until he blundered here and took an f6. Lost the pawn on f5 eventually, and the game. But had he played g6, he would have been able to draw. Now, I was reminded of this famous endgame and this pattern when I saw somebody post this position online. It was with colors reversed. I reversed the colors, but it was also from a game. And here we don't have a pawn on b6, but that doesn't matter. And white is able to draw this one as well, even though it looks difficult. Black is undermining this. Looks like again he's going to win a pawn here, but we can play king c3, and black has nothing better than to eventually take. Again, he can win this pawn, but again we have king here. And turns out we don't really need this pawn and black having this pawn. It's the same. It's the same stalemate refuge. So this should be enough. Found several examples of this. This one, Ivan Sokolov with black goes after the a pawn. Tevyakov brings the king and wants to win the c pawn. But Sokolov knows what to do here. He wins the pawn. And after king to d4, he plays king to b5, and then simply pushes the pawn to a5. King d4 and goes for the stalemate refuge. King takes c4. Stalemate. Another example here. Strong players here, Lovkov and Papadopoulos. And white might have thought he was throwing a spanner in the works here with pawn to e5. Black has to react to this, otherwise the pawn just goes, towards the queenie square, and we got this one fully under control. So just like in Chigorin and Tarrasch, the king has to go away from the passed pawn. And here we need to be careful because king d5, white has time to go for this pawn, and we're not in time. So here actually only one move draws for black. And the presence of these pawns shouldn't change anything. And if you saw the first pattern, you should be able to find the move g5. And this is the only move that draws, because if white goes for the pawn, we take g takes h4. And when white goes for the pawn, we get counterplay with the king, and then the h pawn is very important. So white took on g5, and now king f5. We're definitely outflanking the king to win this f4 pawn, but once again, black went for the stalemate refuge, and well, if we don't take on f4, black is just going to play here, maybe win the pawn and think about his own pawn. So draw, king takes f4, stalemate. This is perhaps equally famous as an example. Anand with white against Kramnik with black. And this was played at the World Championship in Mexico. And Kramnik went for the win with rook to c1. And just like in the other endgames, it looks like he's going to be able to outflank and then bring the king to e5. But we now know what's going to happen. And Anand had no problems here. He played g4, correct move. Kramnik took, king e4, and Anand went for the refuge here on h5. Takes stalemate. One last one here. Again, king d4. Here we have some extra pawns, so it's maybe a little bit more confusing, but if black plays correctly, he's able to find the stalemate refuge here and plays king f6, king d5, king g5, and king e5. And here we need to be careful. Do we play here or take the pawn? I might even leave this one as an exercise. Yeah, do we take the pawn or do we play king h4? Team blue or team green? Tell me in the comments which way is sufficient to secure the draw and which one is not. So this was Chigorin, stalemate, refuge. Cute pattern. Can save you half a point, like I said, here and there. Hope you enjoyed it and see you in another video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.